McNeil. My name is Eric McNeil. Will the real Eric McNeil please stand up? All right, let's hear it.
What a great night for telling stories. When I was 16, I was desperate to get away from my stepdad. I suspect most of us at that age were ready to get away from somebody, but I think this was different. For 4 years, he'd been teaching me that love is a lie. And I realized it was the only subject he taught. I felt like I'd earned my degree and it was time to graduate. Caught him in the hallway and said, "Hey, would you like to get rid of me for the summer?" He said, "Sure." And that's how I got him to pay my way to Hawaii to pick pineapples. I was leaving the rock pile of Phoenix, Arizona, and I was going to a tropical paradise. I imagined picking pineapples. I would walk through the jungle. I'd reach up into a tree. Grab a pineapple, chop it out of the tree with my machete, drop it in a cart. When the cart was full, I'd wheel it over to a truck, dump it, and head back into the jungle for more. How hard could it be? I just about had a heart attack when we pulled up to our first dry, dusty pineapple field. It was surrounded by huge clumps of prickly pear cactus. There were no pineapple trees. Instead, there were thousands and thousands of grown-up pineapple crowns, all about waist high. Looked like a densely packed field of yucca. A Viking shield wall bristling with spears. No sane person would walk into that willingly. I climbed into the field, and I instantly realized why the company required us to wear Levi's, a long-sleeve work shirt, and work boots, and then sold us plastic goggles, canvas chaps, and leather gloves with wide, stiff cuffs like the Lone Rangers. The cuffs kept the leaves from going up the ends of our sleeves. It wasn't just the point on the end of the leaf, it was the teeth that ran along the edges. They'd come off in your skin as you'd reach in to grab the pineapple. The canvas chaps did more than extend the life of your Levi's. They had 2 flaps, one on each hip. And you would take these flaps and you'd wrap them around the front to provide 2 additional layers for that delicate anatomy. And guys would do a kind of dance as they climbed into the field, standing on their tippy toes, trying to avoid all those leaves pointing straight up. And still those leaves would find a way to get through all 3 layers, like needles looking for a hole to sew. But the plastic goggles were the worst. They didn't breathe very well. And so we entertained ourselves by watching sweat accumulate in the bottom of the goggle where they pressed against our cheeks. It was kind of a contest to see who could wait the longest. And when some guy just couldn't take it any longer, he'd announce it. And we'd all cheer in disgust as he'd lift his goggles and these tsunamis of sweat would run down his face and drain off his jaw. It was totally awesome. They planted the fields in blocks, 26 rows wide. A harvester would drive down the road between the blocks. It had a big arm we called a boom that would extend out over 13 of the rows. The system of conveyor belts would get the fruit out of the field. And the 13 of us in my gang would follow that boom through the field. We were expected to pick 80 tons of pineapple a day. I did this for 3 months. When I got back home, I had a nightmare. In my dream, I'm in the worst kind of pineapple field. It has a name, it's called ratoon. After 3 or 4 years, the pineapple plants get top-heavy and they fall over. So in my dream, I'm walking on these matted plants, digging down into the pineapple plants to try to find the fruit. And you can't tell where your row is. So in my dream, the guys on either side of me are drifting away. And their backs are to me, and I'm yelling at them, "Get over here, you're too far away," and they're ignoring me. and it's hot, and it's humid, and I'm sweating, and I'm covered in dust. And then the harvester driver speeds up just a little bit, just enough to make me have to go frantically. And I'm tripping in the pineapples, and I yell at him, slow down! And he's ignoring me, and I look up, and the field goes forever. And that's when I woke up. And for the only time in my life, I thought with great satisfaction, I get to go to school today. And I had that dream twice before it went away. Oh. But the best part about that summer was I got back and I had a new stepdad. It's different from Julian. Julian was gone. This guy was a good guy. He adopted me a couple of years ago. He sent me to college, started working on a teaching degree, and I started working on undoing the degree that Julian had given me. And I realized, as I was about to become a teacher, that I needed some test. I needed to see if I was really ready to start teaching kids. So I thought about it. I decided I would go back to Hawaii. But this time, I would supervise a gang of pineapple pickers. I was going back to that tropical paradise. I imagined what it would be like working with these guys. I would be their boss in the field. I would be called the Luna. In camp, I would be the counselor. And on Sundays, I would be the Sunday school teacher. How hard could it be? We all lived in one giant room for 3 months. I picked them up at the airport, got them back to the camp, they dumped their stuff. Immediately, one of them walks up to me, pulls up his shirt and says, I think I have chicken pox. His chest was covered with little dots. I said, why do you think you have chicken pox? He said, well, my sister has them and I've never had them. I said, yeah, you probably have chicken pox. So he stayed home that week and we got a local kid, Joe, to pick with us for the whole week. After a couple of days, they switched us to night shift so the locals could have normal lives, the ones that were willing to pick. All of us kids from the mainland, we took the night shift. So we'd go to work about 2:30, get off at 11. And by about Thursday of that week, we began to notice something about Joe. Every day at lunch, he would disappear out in the field. When he came back, he was much happier. He was much like a, hey, let's pick some pineapples. We decided it was a little Maui Wowie, a little Pakalolo kind of happy. But later that night, it started to rain. I mean, a downpour. And we were soaked. The field became a muddy mess. And we all had our little yellow raincoats on, but it wasn't to keep dry, it was just to keep the body heated. We ended up coming out of this block about 10:30 at night, and the harvester and the truck have to move to another block. So my guys are standing around. We see this little pickup truck driving in the field. I'm like, who comes out here at 10:30 at night? It was one of the camp coordinators, a guy named Bushy. He pulls up, the guy's like, what's he doing? They say, go over to see why he's there. And he immediately starts serving them some hot chocolate. So the guys are sipping their hot chocolate. I'm being a 22-year-old kid, I'm like, man, we got a half an hour. We better get back in the field. Come on, guys, let's go. So they slowly finished our chocolate, started trickling back into the field. Everybody except Joe. I said, come on, Joe, let's go. He's ignoring me. So I walked over, I got in his face. I looked at him, he's a little bigger than me. Look up. I said, you need to get in the field now. He threw down his cup. Let's beef! I said, you need to get in the field. And I walked away, and immediately some of my guys came up behind me and said, no, we would have had your back. We would have had your back. You could have taken it. Are you kidding me? Well, when the company found out that Joe wanted to beef, they fired him. Next night, I was giving a truck driver a field information. It was a woman. And as I started to walk away, she said, hey, are you that Luna that got Joe fired? I said, why? His brother's in prison for murder. And he's looking for you. And I immediately thought, run. I said, wait, if I start running, this could end up back where I started. I'm on an island. So that night, as we pulled into turnout, about 11:15, it's usually empty, we see a truck and a van sitting there in the dark, full of guys. My gang, I could feel them just like, oh. I walked into the field boss, I handed him the information, the field report. I looked at him and kind of pointed to the trucks in my eyes, and he just shrugged. Got back in the van, started it up, turned on the lights, we pulled out, they started up, and pulled up right behind us. So now we're driving down the back roads of Maui in the middle of nowhere, and there's two vehicles behind ours so close, if I slam on the brakes, they're gonna rear end us, and they're flashing their lights, and they're honking their horns, they're going, pull over, we want to talk to you! And my guys are like, yeah, let's pull over, man, we can take them! We can take them! I said, shut up, man, I think I see weapons back there! We pulled into camp, and they drove on. Oh my gosh. The next night of work, same thing, we pulled in, they were waiting for us again. So I pull out, I start driving, they're right behind us again, they're flashing their lights and honking their horn, and my guys are like, come on, pull over, we can take him, we can take him. I'm like, shut up! And then I hear a song. I hear in the middle of all this yelling and screaming, I hear not one guy, but a few of the guys in my gang have learned a song. They've taught it to each other, and I was starting to try to listen to it, and as I focused in on it, I recognized the melody to Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. And this is what I heard. There's a Luna we know who almost got killed by Joe. Now he's driving the van back to turnout. And when he gets there, he knows there'll be relatives of Joe who'll be waiting with nunchucks and shotguns. Shut up! What are you guys talking about? And they're like, come on, pull over, we can take them. I pull into camp and they drive on. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my first week of work. So the next morning, brushing my teeth, our little bathroom, there's an open window right here, and there's a driveway, one or two that come into our camp. And as I'm brushing my teeth, I hear this. What is that noise? That sounds like a vehicle. Just then I look out the window, and through the bushes next to the window, I can see this car cruising into camp. And Joe is sitting in the passenger seat with the window down and his hands in his lap. And I'm like, there's going to be a drive-by. He's here to bust me a cap. By the time I get out to the lanai, the car has driven through camp and has stirred up a hornet's nest. And the hornets are all now coming to find me. They go, did you see? It's Joe, he was here to get you. You know, they weren't just excited. They were fired up. Because Joe wasn't there to get me. Joe was there to get one of us. And I didn't know it at the time, but this was just the beginning of a summer of those boys teaching me that sometimes love is for real. And as for Joe, I spent the rest of my summer looking over my shoulder. And every time I looked over my shoulder, I found a bunch of kids who had my back. And if Joe had ever found me, he wouldn't have found me alone.